Hey guys, you may or may not have already known this, but I am back from Sydney, Australia. So, due to the wonderful coronavirus, I had to cut my time a little bit short in Australia and come back sooner than expected. So, I am back in Wisconsin, back in the cold, and I'm doing just great. I'm loving having time with my animals and my family, even if I am quarantined and can't really see everyone but my immediate family. But that's okay because it's pretty great to be back home. So, like I said, unfortunately had to cut my time about 3 weeks too soon, which I am a little sad about, but am very grateful for the time that I had gotten while I was abroad. So, to wrap up my Australian adventure, I just figured I would talk a little bit about what I've been up to the last couple weeks because it all seems like such a blur. So, the last I talked, I had just gotten back from New Zealand. And so, at that point, I would say coronavirus wasn't a huge scare in the media. You know, we had heard about it happening in Wuhan and in Asia and such, but like Australia, it was on our forefront just because there is a high Asian population. So they were worried about that just because a lot of tourists as well as family members coming back. So that was kind of on Australia's mind. But like I personally wasn't worried about it. Just because like everything that I was seeing wasn't really showing that it was going to be the major thing. It was mainly just showing that it was going to be like the flu, which, I mean, I've survived the flu before, so I figured it wouldn't be that bad. So Australia, though, was on top of it, I would say, and, you know, we're very cautious about what to do moving forward. And so when I got back from New Zealand, it wasn't really a scary time, I would say. Everything was pretty normal in Sydney. I'd say there are a lot more people wearing masks and like maybe a few more hand washing precautions, but like that was about it. Like not really much was going on. Nothing was getting shut down by any means. Everyone was still doing normal things. There was a plane that wrote "wash hands" in the sky at the kids' school, which that was pretty funny to me, but I wouldn't say anyone was really like terrified. And so that week was pretty normal, you know, took Roisin to dance as I normally do, clean the house as I normally do, basically same thing every day. The only difference was we went out for Japanese food, which that was pretty good, my first time having Japanese, and it was very delicious, if I may say so myself. And then that Friday, Emma actually came over and spent the night there because we had a very, very early morning the next day because we were going to go to Canberra for the weekend. So Canberra is like the Washington, D.C. of Australia. That's their capital. You would think it would be like Sydney or Melbourne, but it's actually directly smack dab in the middle of Sydney and Melbourne because they couldn't decide which city to have it in. So we were planning a getaway to Canberra because I feel like you have to see it when you're in Australia for as long as we are. And so it's about a 3.5 hour drive. So we got on this bus at 5 a.m. It was great. Wonderful, bright morning. And thankfully fell asleep on the bus. And then we pull up into Canberra at 8:30 in the morning. It's rainy. It's overcast. It says it's like 50 degrees outside. Emma and I look at each other and we're like, what are we getting ourselves into? So we get off the bus and freezing, and we're like, we need breakfast. So we found this like cute little diner that had like American style pancake breakfast. So it was wonderful. We indulged in that and sat there for like 3 hours eating pancakes and warming up. And then we finally decided, okay, maybe we should actually do something. So we went to the Australian War Memorial, which is like a must-see thing in Canberra. We didn't really know much about it because, like, to us, Australia is just kind of like there in the wars. We always forget about like their involvement. And it's a beautiful area. The architecture and the buildings are gorgeous. There's like a war wall with all the names that were in World War I, and people placed poppies in that, so that was beautiful to see. And there's also a tomb to the unknown soldier, kind of like DC has. So that was very special to see. And then from there, we just kind of walked around and got some lunch. I kind of stumbled upon this like rose garden, which had some spectacular, gorgeous roses. And of course, had to take pictures of all of them because why not? And they were really pretty. So then, after we stumbled upon that, we went to the Parliament building. Let me just say, this is like the ugliest building I've ever seen. And like, I don't care if that comes off as rude. Like, it is a very ugly building. Like, it's trying to mix modern with old and rich, and it doesn't work. It's very, very weird. You can tell for yourself. But like, the inside is these beautiful, like, marble columns, and then on the side you have these like wooden panels, and like very weird looking building. And so we went into their like Senate and their House of Representatives area, and that evening we went and found some like dessert somewhere and found some dinner, and that's really about it that we did that first day, because Canberra is pretty quiet. So since it is the government area of Australia, like, the weekends are dead because nobody actually lives there. They all commute in. So it was very, very strange to have like this quiet ghost town of a city. So then the next day we got up, got some breakfast, and went to this place called Questacon. Now this has been like the major thing to do in Canberra as well. Like, if you go and do anything, it's a war memorial and you gotta go to Questacon. So essentially, Questacon is like the science museum, the kids' science museum in St. Paul. Very interactive kind of things to do, which I thought was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. And then we got on the bus to, in Canberra, got back on, and came all the way back to Sydney. And then this is where my week started to get a little weird. So, I wasn't too scared about coronavirus, I would say, until that Monday I got back. I went to the supermarkets, and the supermarkets were empty. Every shelf, like nothing on the shelf. And that kind of really freaked me out personally. Those of you that know me know how much I was looking forward to coming home. Even if I like loved my time there, which I did, I was very much counting down the days, ready to come home. And then having that fear of I might not get home really scared me. So I had to have a really hard talk with my host family. A lot of the airlines were losing money because people weren't flying to these destinations, so they were just kind of dropping all flights. So essentially there was kind of a window. I needed to leave early if I was going to leave at all, essentially. Like, I think had I stayed, the chances of me getting home in beginning of April would have been very slim. So ultimately, looking back, I think I made the right decision. But had to make that decision, and it was very hard. I was really only giving my family maybe 3 or 4 days notice. I mean, I was scheduled to leave in 3 weeks, so they kind of knew it was coming. But like, that's not easy when you've been relying on an extra hand around the house. So like, I felt bad about that. Unfortunately, I had to make that call, and we had to tell the kids, and I had to quickly do everything. I wanted to make sure that I was doing as much as I could to put them ahead of the game, since they wouldn't have an au pair for like a few weeks. So doing a lot of cleaning and organizing. The hardest part, though, besides saying goodbye to the family, the second hardest part was saying goodbye to Emma. So obviously I've mentioned her in like every vlog because we've done just about everything together. Thankfully, Wednesday night we were able to meet up, and I was able to go over to her house. And I bought some pastries from Papa's, which you've seen featured in a different vlog. and I brought some cannolis and some things over to her, and we sat on her bed and ate pastries and just talked. And like, it was good. She completely understands. You know, a lot of the people are like, you know, if I were in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. Um, Even some other people are like, well, if you didn't leave now, you probably wouldn't be leaving till Christmas. And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess I did make the right decision. But it was very hard to say goodbye to her. But thankfully, she's from North Carolina, so I can see her in a mere 6 months when she comes home. So then my last night in Sydney, I had gotten the kids some gift cards because Aiden's birthday was on Sunday and Roshin's would be in May, but I got her something as well. And I wrote them just cute cards saying thank you and how much I'll miss them. And so I gave those to them with a picture frame of my favorite picture with us. And they each gave me the sweetest little cards ever that they both wrote, which was super thoughtful, and I'll definitely always remember them. And so, of course, I started crying when I was reading them out loud because, like, it's hard to say goodbye. And then as a family, we all sat down and watched Aladdin, the new live action one. So that was good. And then the kids went off to bed and I went off to finish packing and go to bed. That night I could not sleep because of my fear that my flight was going to get canceled. So 24 hours before my flight was supposed to go out with Delta, I got an email saying, oh, you can check in. So I went on getting ready to check in, and oh, lo and behold, your flight is canceled because Delta decided to cancel all of flights to save them money. So I am sitting here Thursday, less than 24 hours before I'm supposed to fly out, like terrified because what happens if I don't get out of here? Like, what if I'm stuck here? Like, I had already packed all my bags, like, stress. And so I try to call Delta, but because I'm international, Delta doesn't have like an international line you can call. So I had to call my mom, who thankfully was awake and could call Delta. So she had Delta on one hand and me on the other, and she was kind of playing the middleman. So talking to the first Delta agent, they're like, yes, we're sorry about that. We canceled all flights. There's this Virgin Australia flight we can put you on. It'll actually give you some money back. It'll be perfect. Flies out same time tomorrow. Let me just put that in. And like, apparently the system didn't register on her end. So she's like, oh, okay. I have the seat saved for you. Let me transfer you. We're like, okay, phew, we can relax a little bit. She transfers us to somebody, and we explain everything that went down, and he, like, was basically saying she didn't do anything. Like, she didn't reserve the seat. He has no clue what she was talking about. Like, there's no flights. Everything's booked out if there are. Which made me stress because, like, how am I going to get home? So in the midst of all this, I was on my computer and quickly bought a flight with United, because thankfully they were still flying. It was like the last seat available. Worst layovers ever, but like, I didn't care. I was getting on a flight out of Sydney, Australia that night before I was stuck there for who knows how long. So I bought that, and thankfully Delta gave me a full refund. So hopefully that all comes back because that's a lot of money for a flight I was not on. But so thankfully I booked with United. So the next 24 hours were kind of scary for me, just knowing, like, are they going to cancel? Is it still going to go? What's going to happen? So that's why I didn't sleep the greatest that night. And so we had to get up at 6 a.m. I showered, got my stuff all organized, and then had to go wake the kids up to say goodbye to them. Aiden, who is super easy to wake up, always came down right away, gave me a big hug, started crying. You know, I felt really bad leaving them. It's so soon and so sudden, but at the same time, I don't think it would have been easier to say goodbye in 3 weeks. So, it's unfortunate, but like, they're good kids. So then I went upstairs, and Roshin, who sleeps like a rock, who you can't wake up, I went in there and just kind of said, "Hey, it's Leslie." She shot up out of bed real fast, gave me the biggest hug ever, and just like started sobbing in my arms, which I felt really bad about. But it's sad to have to leave them, since, they probably see a new person come into their lives like this every 6-7 months. And, they get pretty close to them, and then they leave and go back to their families. So it's hard. So I had both kids in my arms at that point, and they were crying. And then I look over, and Marina, the mom, is crying as well. So I give her a big hug. And so the four of us are all kind of hugged together, and Anthony, the dad's kind of keeping it together over in the hallway. So I said my goodbyes, got in the car, and Anthony drove me to the airport. And dropped me off there, and he gave me a big hug and thanked me for everything and said I did a wonderful job and was very thankful for everything I've done for the family. So then we said our goodbyes, and next thing you know, I was off into the airport. And what a crazy sight the airport was, because it's such a weird feeling there. So most of the time when you're in an airport, it kind of feels like fun because most people are going on vacation or coming home from vacation. But like, there's just this eerie feeling in the airport because nobody's going on vacation right now and everyone's trying to get home. There's just this like feeling of panic because nobody is here for enjoyment at this moment. Like, everyone is leaving because this is their last chance to leave. So I got in this line that actually didn't take as long, but I thought it was going to take a lot longer. Probably took about an hour to get my bags checked in, and they're like, "Oh, hey, your bags are too heavy. It's going to be like $200 US if you can't redistribute the weight." So I like shuffled everything around, and thankfully didn't have to pay that. Masks are everywhere. People are wearing their disposable gloves, hand sanitizer everywhere. Like, which is understandable. Like, nobody wants to get coronavirus or spread it. So then once you're in the airport, just kind of settled and got ready, and then got on the fun 14-hour flight, which I had a middle seat in like the last row because that's literally the last seat that was open. So I wasn't the most comfortable. I had like an older lady next to me, and then like a younger guy wearing this like painter's mask next to me, which, whatever. I was on my way home, so I really didn't care that much. So I snuggled in, got all my blankets, pillows, whatnot, got as comfortable as can be, and endured that long flight. I didn't get up that much, only twice, just because I had a middle seat and don't want to be a bother. Watched some movies, took some cat naps, ate a lot. I feel like that's all I did in the 14 hours, but it's okay. So that flight was packed. We were like, if they could pack any more people on that flight, I'm sure they would have. So once we touched down in Los Angeles, it was 6 a.m. So thankfully that was before like most planes were getting in. So it was pretty quiet given the circumstances. And going through immigration really only took maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. They didn't ask me any questions about coronavirus either. They like looked at me and said, "Welcome home," gave me the stamp and let me right on in. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but they let me in. I collected my bags and off to another line to go get my bags rechecked because I still had 2 more flights before I got back to Minneapolis. So boarding in Los Angeles, I had a flight to Denver because that's just what United wanted to give me. So I had a short flight over to Denver, and there was like nobody on that flight as well. So I had 3 seats to myself, so you can bet I took a nice long nap. And so we landed in Denver, and I had only a 40-minute layover there, so thankfully we were not delayed getting out of Los Angeles. But getting off the plane in Denver, I walked down the hallway, went to the bathroom, and walked to my gate and got on the plane. Like, I didn't even sit down in that time. So there was not a long time between my 2 flights. So then just one more flight before me and getting home to Minneapolis. And so I got on that flight, and that one was from Denver to Minneapolis, about an hour and a half. Probably only about 20 or 30 people on that flight as well. Had another 3 seats to myself, which that was wonderful. Lounged out, fell asleep, landed in good old Minneapolis. Made my way through the airport as quickly as possible because I knew my parents were on the other side, and they were waiting there by the baggage claim. And I ran to them, gave them huge hugs, kisses, cried. They both cried, collected our bags, and next thing we know, we were on our way home. Thank goodness. But it was the weirdest feeling in the airport, because normally Minneapolis is jam-packed. This was Friday, 5 p.m. So most people it would be a pretty busy area. Minneapolis was dead. There were no stores open. There was nobody walking through the terminal, which was kind of scary and freaky and very eerie. And so we would be driving back during rush hour Friday at 5 p.m. and we had no problem getting out of the cities. There was no one on the road. So definitely coronavirus is affecting people, and thankfully most people are taking it seriously, which I highly recommend, so we can get out of here and go enjoy each other again. But then we stopped for Culver's on the way home in Stillwater, which, miss me some Culver's. And we came home here, and I got to see my critters. But my parents actually surprised me with my cat in the car, so I had him the whole way home. He hated the car, but it was good seeing him after 6 months. And so once we got home, I quickly ran to hide behind our pontoon out in the trees, and we let the dogs out to see if they could find me, and Wendy, our golden retriever, was so excited to see me.
Hi! Hi! Hi, Winnie! Hi! Hi, honey! Hi! How are you? Hi! Hi! Hi, sweetie! Hi!
She cried and cried and cried and whined. But it was good being home, and it's been almost a week now, and I think I've done absolutely nothing in the whole week. I mean, I've unpacked my bag, hung up my clothes, cleaned my room, but that's about it. And that's what my quarantine life has been so far. I'm gonna probably start a puzzle, maybe dump all my pictures onto Facebook, so we'll see. So that's basically all that has happened in the last couple weeks. It's been an emotional roller coaster of a few weeks, and it's kind of sad to see this chapter of my vlogs end, but who knows, maybe I'll be on another adventure soon, and you'll all get to tag along again if you so choose to. But thanks again for sticking with me on these vlogs for so long. It's been a great 6 months of my Australian adventure, and hopefully someday I'll be back soon.
Hi guys! Welcome back to our vlogs. I'm gonna pray that the camera doesn't fall down, but for now... See, I can predict the future.
Ooh,
Welcome to the Sea Harbour Bridge.
Oh, what is this bridge? I've never seen it before.
It is crazy. Radical!
It's crazy right
Look
now.
at those cars.
So many cars.
I'm just gonna do a little view of the beautifulness. So look at that, guys. The Harbour Bridge.
The bridge.
You guys, Leslie can't actually take photos of this because she's responsible and doesn't take photos in the car.
Not while driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never take photos in the car.
It's illegal to take a photo in the car, even if the engine's off.
No car. I climbed that bridge.
Oh,
What up?
honey, Slay, you're so beautiful.
Hey guys, been there, done that.
Yeah, little Leslie's up there. Oh, the memory of her.
Ma'am. Do it for the ma'am.
Look at that. This is a stunning video.
Oh, man. We'll have to submit this to Nat Geo Wild or something.
This is epic. I'm even taking some photos while I'm at it.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
Wow, this is just so